everyone, this is Silky Sharma from Indian Weekender. Today I am with a person who is going to answer few of these questions, Dr. Duncan Webb. Hello Dr. Duncan Webb, how are you? And thank you so much for giving us time.
Look, it's really great to be here. Great to be able to talk to the Kiwi Indian community about these really important issues.
Most of people know you, but if you give us a little introduction.
Look, my name's Duncan Webb. I'm the Labour Party Member of Parliament for Christchurch Central. So, and it's great to be here and great to help many of the community who come into this office here, right in the middle of town.
Being a small-scale business myself, we want to know that about the status of these companies' director duties amendment law, which has been in Parliament introduced by you.
That's right. So that's a member's bill, my member's bill. Any backbench MP who's not a minister is allowed to have an idea and try and get it drawn out of the ballot, and if they do, then it goes to Parliament and we decide whether it becomes law. And I got my bill drawn, and it's a bill. It's a very small bill, but all it does is it makes it clear that a company doesn't have to be just for profit. It can be for wider purposes. It might be to look after employees, so it can in looking after the interests of the company, it can look after the interests of its employees or the environment or the community or any number of other things. So it's just really making sure we understand that the old-fashioned idea that a company just has to be entirely focused on profit at the expense of everything else, that's yesterday's thinking. And we all know that the companies and the small businesses that you run, they're part of the community and they can take into account all kinds of things.
Right. So what is the timeline you are thinking it's going to be happen and pass?
I mean, laws do take a relatively long period of time to pass.
Yes.
So it won't be debated for several weeks, probably another 3 or 4 weeks yet.
Right.
That will be its first reading, and then it will go to select committee and come back to Parliament. But overall, it will probably take about a year before it finally passes into law.
Right, so about a year we can expect that.
That's right.
Yeah,
but, I'll be posting on Facebook when it gets to the various stages, and there'll be a chance for people to have their say. If they want to have a say about it at the select committee process, it will be fantastic.
Yes, and I think that's important how people...
it's a great part of the process, and one of my jobs, I'm on the Finance Select Committee, deals with law like this quite a lot of the time, and people coming along and having their say on all kinds of things is really, really useful in making it better.
Yes, absolutely. So what are the significant features of this bill?
Yeah, I mean, the key factor, as I said, is that it makes it clear that when so one of the basic rules of company law is that a director has to act in the interest of the company.
Right.
Can't act in someone else's interest or even in their own interest. They've got to put the company first.
Yes.
Now, some people have taken the view that in doing that, it means maximise profit.
Yes.
The bill makes it clear that a company doesn't have to be just to maximise profit. It can take into account environmental concerns, social concerns, community concerns, looking after workers, or even the Treaty of Waitangi. So
how you think, especially with this Treaty of Waitangi and how it's going to...
Well, I mean, and obviously this bill will go to Parliament and get improved along the way, and this may be something that needs some improvement. But I mean, I was up in Gisborne a while ago, and there's a company there, I think it's called Rua Bioscience, which is a Māori company run by one of the iwi, and one of its main things it does is that it employs members from that iwi. Now, in some ways, you'd say, well, is that in the best interests of the company? But that's a company which kind of has the iwi's interests at heart. So it's appropriate for it to be a particularly Māori company and do things in a way that perhaps you might or I might do differently. Right. So that's what I mean when I say, you can kind of take a Māori point of view. And if it's a Māori shareholder, Māori directors, they can use those values in that framework. So, and that's not entirely foreign to anyone, having a company that looks after the community that it belongs to.
Right, okay. So we will wait for this, and hopefully this will get passed in about a year, as you said. And yes, and the main purpose of businesses should be not only work for themselves, but it should be employees and environment. And
that's right, just a much wider context, just recognising that, the business world is this, but the world as a whole is much, much larger, taking into account all of the people in it, the wider environment, and all of the interests they have.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so if we nowadays, it's being very, very serious now if we talk about COVID. So do you think in regards to COVID, government could have done better than what is being at the moment getting done?
Oh, look, could the government have done better? There's no doubt that you learn lessons as you go along, right? You've got to remember that, this is a global pandemic, and we can all cast our minds back less than 2 years to when we hadn't heard the word COVID-19,
yes.
And we were living an entirely different life.
Right.
From there, we have gone from there to managing, to the government and the people of New Zealand managing a global pandemic. Are there things we would have done different along the way if we knew then what we know now?
Yeah.
I have no doubt that there is. But given the situation we were in, and looking at how New Zealand is doing, we've done amazingly well compared with what's going on overseas, as I'm sure you and many of the people who are watching this would know.
Yes, but still my question is, okay, what about those people who are not agreeing to get vaccine, who are not, so how government has any plan to deal with those people, because festive season is coming and people are already disappointed not doing the celebration.
Sure. So yeah, and as we just noted that Diwali has been
yes.
the event has been cancelled, not
yes.
the day, not the celebration, but the event itself,
yes.
For that very reason. And you're quite right that the best way to get back to the situation where we can have much more normality is vaccination. But look, I want to be really clear that there's no suggestion that vaccines are going to be forced on anyone, because it's pretty fundamental that people have choice about medical treatment, and vaccine is a medical treatment. So what we've got to do then is do our very best to persuade people that this is the best thing to do, and to give them reasons to do that. And I have my part to play as a Member of Parliament in talking to people, but so do you as someone really connected with a different community, and so does everyone else. Yes. I think and I guess that's what I'd say if you agree with me that the vaccine is the best way to return to normal, and yes. Someone who doesn't think that, then it's up to you to have that conversation with them, and not to have an argument, but just to ask and engage and try to understand what the barriers are, and try to help that person find the information they need to make a choice. Now, ultimately, there will always be some people who make the choice not to, and we're not going to change that mind, but we've got to change the minds that we can to protect everyone, and especially those vulnerable people around us.
Right. So, I understand that you said we can't impose it on the people. Obviously, we can't. But is there any specific plan of government if these people are not, as it is happening, people are not agreeing to get vaccines? So,
well, I mean, the plan at the moment is to make it as easy as possible for everyone to get the vaccine, to make all of the information as available as possible, and essentially to ask everyone who we can to be an ambassador, so that all the people who reasonably will do. It's not just, we can sometimes focus on people who have some quite unusual ideas about the vaccine, but there's other people who are, hard to reach. They're in faraway places, or they are not well engaged with the community, or they're busy people, or for whatever reason, or they're a bit hesitant. They might not like needles, or they might not have enough information about the safety of the vaccine.
Yes.
All that information is there, and we've got to make sure it's available and given to them by someone they trust. So that, because not everyone trusts me, they think I'm from the government, why would I trust the government, so if they hear it from someone they know, someone who's familiar, might be that they speak the right language even, those kind of barriers we've got to make every effort to overcome.
Right, okay. So my last question for the day is, like this COVID situation we see, do you think that as I heard National Party's leader also saying about this, that they could have handled it nicely or in a better way? Look, what do you think about that?
The job of the National Party is to try and challenge everything that we do, and that's great. That's a really important part of the way the New Zealand government works, is that there's an opposition there who's fiercely critical and pushes at every opportunity. But let's be clear that there's one thing that we are absolutely in agreement around the whole of Parliament, and that is that the vaccination pathway is the best pathway. That they absolutely agree that pushing for as much of the population to be vaccinated as soon as possible is the best thing to do. Now, sure, as we started, could we have done things better? If we know knew then what we know now, we would have done things differently. And the opposition often points that out. But I don't think that anyone would have wanted to go down the path that many other people were pushing, which was to open up the country and the economy much more quickly and much more freely. We've got a difficult situation in Auckland right now, with cases which are not going down in the way we would want them to. And that is with tight restrictions. So we don't have to wonder too much what would happen if we had not put the restrictions we have in place. We would have a vast outbreak. We would be in a similar situation to Melbourne or somewhere like that. And we've got to remember that COVID is a deadly disease. It kills people. And not only that, for every person it kills, many others have a very serious and long-term illness with long-term effects. So we can't just focus on the headline, how many people would die. There's a whole lot of other misery that goes along with it. So look, I think this whole idea that we can trade off our freedoms for lives is wrong. We absolutely have to pursue and eliminate every case we can, suppress COVID as much as we can, and push out our vaccinations as fast as we can. And that's exactly what we're doing. So look, absolutely agree, the National Party and the other opposition parties have a job to do. They're doing it pretty well. They're asking all the right questions, but I think we've got the right answers.
Okay, yeah. So with the hope of this, that we again will able to celebrate our festivals, everyone and all the community I'm talking about. I said last question, but very last question I'll ask you is, well, when we talk about Kiwi Indian, and this is a channel where I'm representing them. So the question is immigration policies, which have, recent resident thing has been done, and that's a very wonderful effort taken by government. But what about all those people who've been left, like students, and what about those? They are still in New Zealand.
As you know, immigration policy is always going to be difficult, and I entirely understand why there are many people who would like to have a right to stay in New Zealand for as long as they like as residents. So wherever we draw a line on immigration, there will be disappointed people. And here, I think we have drawn the line in a very generous place. We have opened up the door to immigration for 165,000 people who are currently within New Zealand. Now, I'm not trying to dismiss or minimise the fact that there are people who would have loved to have been in that pool. It's really important to remember that those people aren't being told to leave New Zealand. They're not being told they can't stay in New Zealand. All they're being told is they don't fit within a special category. So if you're a student on a visa, then, there's the usual pathway. It might take longer, it might be more demanding. But this very special pathway is recognising that because of COVID, there are a whole lot of people who were kind of stuck, wondering. They were very anxious, they didn't know what their future held. And we wanted to make it clear to them that, we wanted to get rid of that anxiety, to give them some certainty so they could get on with a life in New Zealand. So look, to all those other people, and I'm getting many emails from people from all around the world who are currently in New Zealand saying, why not me? I'm on this kind of work visa, or I'm on a student's visa, or a partner's work visa for students, and all other kinds. Well, I understand the disappointment, but there's still a pathway to residency in a whole lot of situations. And I think the line was drawn at about the right place, that it was a very generous line. 165 new residents that we are going to try and turn around within 12 months' time is an amazing act of generosity, but one that I'm very happy the New Zealand government made.
Yes, absolutely. It is very good effort by government, but with that, I will end my questions.
That was a very long answer, but great to see you here, and thanks for coming along.
That's okay. Thank you so much. I will come back with my new questions, and when you are going to do something new.
Okay. I look forward to it.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is Silky Sharma from Indian Weekender, and we thank Dr. Duncan Webb, who has a very busy schedule. Still, he gives us time. Thank you.
Thank you.